This is in the District Court of Butler County, Kansas, case entitled State of Kansas versus Dimitri Ray Woods. It's case number 2024 CR 160. The State of Kansas appears by Brett Sweeney of the Butler County Attorney's Office. James Watts appears as defense counsel. Defendant Woods appears apparently from Lansing Correctional Facility by Zoom. This matter comes before the court at this time for evidentiary preliminary hearing. Mr. Watts, it's court's understanding that Mr. Woods wishes to address the court personally.
I believe that's the case, Your Honor.
Well, this is a little bit out of order, Mr. Woods, but what is it that you want to address the court about?
Well, I'm having difficulties with my attorney, so if possible, I would like a change of counsel.
Difficulties with your attorney?
Yeah.
You're just getting started with the case, Mr. Woods. He's the most experienced attorney that we have in our district.
Well, I've asked him a couple times about some issues that he's not willing to present or do, so that's why I'm asking for such.
Mr. Wood, well, let me address Mr. Watts. Mr. Watts, do you have anything that you wish to say?
Your Honor, Mr. Woods has asked me to make a couple of motions. As Your Honor is well aware, and I've told Mr. Woods this as well, I will not file motions that do not have a basis in law and will not file what I consider to be frivolous motions. In particular, Mr. Woods has asked for a motion for a change of venue. I see no basis whatsoever and absolutely zero chance that a change of venue motion would have any basis, and I will not file such a motion.
All right. Mr. Woods, you're under the impression that you can't get a fair trial in Butler County?
No, not at all, especially being that the facility is so intertwined with the Butler County District.
Mr. Woods, it may be surprising to you, but Butler County has a large population that's very diverse. I would guarantee you there's probably many, many prospective jurors who aren't even aware we have a maximum security penitentiary in Butler County, much less intertwined with it, as you suggest. In a smaller county, that may be a valid concern, but in a suburban county of this size and diversity, I don't think that's a valid concern.
Issues as far as that,
and change of venue would be most important for the trial. We're at a preliminary hearing stage here. And I assure you that you're going to get a fair shot from this court regarding preliminary hearing evidence. So, quite frankly, I don't see that there is a legitimate concern over counsel or counsel's performance.
well, not only that's just one issue. The other issue is what we discussed in private. My basis on another motion that I would like for him to file, which he's not even willing to go over the paperwork and entertain. So it's just where it leaves me stuck.
All right, just that Mr. Woods' tactical decisions are made by the criminal defense attorney, not by the defendant themselves. I think you can have a discussion with him about what you would like to see pursued, but those ultimate determinations are made by the lawyer, not by the client.
Well, I just did that, and he's not even willing to cross-examine the paperwork, so that's why I say another change of counsel needs to be.
Well, I'll at this time, the court's going to deny your request, Mr.
As long as
Woods.
it's on record, that's all I want.
Very well. Trusting, of course, Mr. Sweeney, that you're ready to proceed, I'm going to ask you to call your first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state would call Officer O'Brien.
And Your Honor, we would ask witness to be sequestered, please.
All right. Everyone else who's been called as a witness today and who's on this meeting needs to be put into a waiting room. So, Mandy, if you would do that.
If I may, Judge.
Hang on, Mr. Woods.
Do I need to put Jacqueline Green in there as well?
Who is Jacqueline Green?
She's our victim witness coordinator, Mandy. I don't
Okay.
think so.
All right.
Not going to be a witness.
Okay. I think we're ready to proceed with evidence at this time.
Okay.
All right, Mr. O'Brien, raise your right hand. The court will administer an oath. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in the matter now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
I object, Your Honor. He has nothing to do with this. He was not a witness, is hearsay. He's not a victim or a witness. He was not there. He has
Did I
nothing
hear
to
an
do.
I do?
I
I
do.
will. Okay. All right.
I object.
Oath is completed. All right. You good. Mr. Woods, why don't you save the objections for your attorney? Okay. Let him do that.
Well, he should do that. That's why I just asked you to pause. If I was present, we wouldn't have these problems. I would be able to reach over and tell my lawyer I would like for him to object. O'Brien has nothing to do with this.
Well, we'll see about that. And Mr. Sweeney, I hope he does have something to do with this case.
Yes, Your Honor, he's the affiant.
He's not a victim. He's not a witness.
All right.
Present the camera. I mean, let's just show the camera right now, and it will show that I didn't do other
Mr.
trials.
Woods, I understand your ongoing concerns, but I need to get through this case. I've got a number of cases lined up today. And this one's starting way late.
Please do.
Okay. So I'm just going to need you to hold on and be quiet while the court proceedings take place. Begin your questioning of the witness, Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, would you please state your name for the court, please?
Thomas O'Brien, Special Agent Supervisor, EDCF, EAI Division.
Okay. And Mr. O'Brien, you stated a job title. Who do you work for?
Kansas Department of Corrections,
How long have you been employed with the Kansas Department of Corrections?
approximately 25 years.
Okay. And in that job title that you previously mentioned, does that involve investigating incidents that happen inside the correctional facility walls?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Officer, I want to direct your attention to December 5th of 2020. Were you made aware of an incident regarding allegedly an inmate by the name of Dimitri Woods on that date?
Yes.
When did you first become aware of this incident?
I don't recall the exact time. Shortly thereafter, shortly after the incident occurred.
Okay. And so when a situation like this happens, can you talk to me a little bit about what your role is regarding investigation and video retention, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so a lot of things start in a staff battery. Any available facility DVR footage is backed up and retained. Staff interviews be conducted, resident interviews if they participate in this specific instance. Resident Woods and a couple others were transferred out of El Dorado right after the incident, but he was given an opportunity to interview at Lansing, which he refused. He invoked his rights at Lansing, so as did the others. But so that's it. Any evidence retention, any evidence that we could get, we retain and log and evidence logs and stuff like that.
Okay. And I may ask you to speak up just a little bit. I'm having a little bit of a difficulty hearing you. In this specific incident, specifically as it relates to Mr. Woods, were there a number of individuals, staff members that were involved or possibly injured?
Yes. I believe there were five staff members.
Okay. And so did you have a chance to review the video? And if so, can you kind of just give me a brief narrative of what you viewed there and how this incident started?
Yeah, would I be able to reference my report?
Objection, Your Honor, under best evidence rule. If they were going to narrate the video, the best evidence would be to watch the video. Let's see the video.
I didn't quite hear what it was that he was wanting to reference.
Well, the counsel asked him to basically describe what he saw in the video. And I understand that he could certainly do that, but the basis for the prosecution and the basis for his evidence is the video. That's available for all to see. The best evidence is available under the best evidence rule is to put the video on. So if the video is going to be the basis for the testimony, just play the video.
What is it that he was wanting to reference? Can I get an answer to that?
My report.
The court will allow him to access his report to refresh his recollection. The objection's overruled.
So in my report and in my affidavit, I actually gave a chronological report of the events as they were viewed on the DVR footage, which is why I requested to review my report. If you want specific times, I can go through and give you to the second by what the DVR timer said. So,
Officer, can you just give me a brief narrative of how this started and who all was involved?
it initially started with a fight / battery between 3 other KDOC residents. They were in a fight. That fight was response officers showed up and they got that fight broken up. And one of the residents involved in that fight tried to escape out of the cell house. Or I shouldn't say escape. He tried to leave the scene. Go to another cell house. And he was caught right in between the cell houses by Officer Wallace. Wallace stopped him. That resident was not compliant and was fighting Wallace. Wallace initiated a use of force to get him restrained. And at that time, Dimitri Woods came through into the Sally Port where this incident with Wallace and one of the original suspects or one of the original fighting residents was taking place. Came into the Sally Port with a stabbing type instrument in his hand and stuck Wallace in the face with that. He went on to, if I remember correctly, he went on and kneed an officer by the name of Redneck or something to that effect. I don't recall his name. And then he punched another officer in the Sally Port. He went through that into the cell house where the original 3-person fight was, and stabbed Brandon Neely in the face with that stabbing instrument. And then the video showed he took a swing at Sarah Owens at her face with that stabbing instrument, missed her with the instrument, but punched her in the face. Brandon Neely was able to take Dimitri Woods down, and he gained control of the weapon that Dimitri Woods had. At some point, Sarah Owens had gone out into the Sally Port area from the cell house. And when they got Woods restrained, They went to escort him out of the cell house through the Sally Port, and he kicked Sarah Owens in the face on his way out. And that's a basic basis for this.
Okay. Did you personally ever interview Mr. Woods?
No, Woods invoked his right.
Okay. Now, was there ever a motive determined for any of this?
The best that I could tell, the two of the original attackers in that original 3-man incident were residents who were just becoming or trying to become members of the Blood gang. They're trying to become Blood members, and Dimitri Woods is a validated Blood member. So when the use of force in the Sally Port with Officer Wallace occurred, that was with one of the newly joined Bloods, or the guys that's trying to be a Blood. I believe Dimitri Woods was defending another Blood member, and obviously that's not something that could be completely substantiated because nobody talked, but that's what it appeared like in my training and experience.
Sure. And so you were the one that investigated this case. It sounds like you had certainly some familiarity with the El Dorado Correctional Facility. Do you see Mr. Woods here in the Zoom conference today?
Yes, I do.
And if you could you maybe point that individual out and give a brief description for the court?
Dimitri Woods, his little camera square says Amy Huffman, LCF. He's a light-skinned African male with a beard, mustache, and curly hair.
Okay. Your Honor, let the record reflect that the witness has now identified the defendant.
The record so reflects.
Okay. And I don't know if it was ever testified to, but did this happen at the El Dorado Correctional Facility?
Yes, it did.
Okay. And it sounds like it happened in what, like kind of an open area or a day room inside the prison. Can you kind of describe for me what the room situation is where this happened?
So the cell house looks almost like a butterfly shape, with one cell house being the right wing, and then the other cell house being the left wing, and in the center, where the butterfly body would be, is called the Sally Port, and that's where you enter into the front of the cell houses. And you'll either go to the left, which would be the one side, or the right, which is the two side. So Dimitri Woods' involvement started in the Sally Port between the two cell houses, and then continued on into the two side day room, which is where he had initial contact with Sarah Owens and Brandon Neely.
Okay. And so it sounds like also there were a number of officers who were injured in this situation. What's the protocol when an officer is injured? Do those individuals receive treatment in facility, or are they taken out and seen in outside hospitals? And what happened here?
If it's a serious injury, they'll be triaged by on-site medical, which is their contract medical provider. But anything outside of that, they go off-site for treatment.
Okay. And in this situation, with these respective individuals, who all was, to your knowledge, who all was seen in sight and then out of sight as far as their injuries?
I don't know who was seen, if anyone was seen by on-site medical, by the on-site medical provider. But I do know that well, I believe that Sarah Owens Brandon Neely, Robert Wallace, Johnson, can't remember her first name. Amy or Ashley Johnson. And then the Ethan Rabenik, or however he pronounces his name. Those were the victims, and
Okay,
so
okay. Is there, well, I think with that, I don't have any further questions for Officer O'Brien.
Questions for this witness, Mr. Watts?
Very briefly, Your Honor. Mr. O'Brien, were you present at the scene where this incident took place?
I'm sorry you cut out partway through that.
Sir, were you present at the scene at or about the time where this incident took place?
No,
So everything you get secondhand from other persons, correct?
that is correct.
Okay. Nothing else. Thank you.
Very well. I trust Mr. O'Brien can be released at this time, Mr. Sweeney.
Well, Your Honor, as it relates to that, I would, I guess, ask Mr. O'Brien, to Mr. Watt's question, everything that you were able to ascertain is basically from the video and speaking with other people, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and how were those videos maintained? Did you happen to view the video in this particular case?
Your Honor's objections outside the scope of cross.
Mm.
I think you did open this door, Mr. Watts. Mr. Sweeney, you may continue.
Okay, how are those videos maintained, and did you have a chance to view the video in this case, and did you get some information about this case from that video?
Okay, the videos are maintained on a server initially. The DVR server, it maintains those videos for approximately 30 days before they get overwritten. So any video that we need to retain has to be backed up and saved on a different server, which is what we do. Then for cases like this, those videos are downloaded onto a I'm sorry. Those videos are downloaded to a flash drive or a hard drive to be submitted with the case, which is how you would get those videos.
Okay, and then are they turned over to the county attorney's office?
Yes.
Okay, and have you seen the video in this, again, you've seen the video in this case, right?
Yes. Yes. I
Okay,
did.
was that altered or edited in any way before it was presented to the county attorney's office?
No, it was not.
Okay, Your Honor, may I have the opportunity to share my screen and share what I believe is a very short video, about a couple minutes long, maybe?
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Court will admit the video into evidence at this hearing, and you may show it at this time, Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, officer, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and press play. Okay, so Officer O'Brien, were you, I've now stopped sharing my screen. Were you able to view that video?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and what did it appear we were looking at there?
That was Dimitri Woods after he'd battered the staff in the Sally Port coming into the two side, where he took the swings at Officer Neely, and Officer Owens. Neely was the one who grabbed him from behind, took him down to the ground.
Okay.
Owens and some other officers came to help while he fought them. At one point, for sure, at least one point, you could see the weapon still in his hand before Neely got control of that weapon.
Okay. Now, Mr. Watts had asked you about that you weren't there when this happened. Was the knife for the stabbing implement ever presented to you, or was that ever located?
That was, yeah, that should be in our evidence. If I remember correctly, Neely secured that inside his stab vest once he got a hold of it.
Okay. What was it?
It was just a long metal stabbing, a long metal rod.
Rod. Do you know how it was obtained, or how somebody would find something like this on the inside of the El Dorado Correctional Facility?
No, there's a number of ways that materials to make weapons are obtained. They can be from a construction project that's going on. Sometimes they'll dismantle office furniture or um, uh, cabinets, metal file cabinets. Yeah, take stuff off the walls sometimes.
Okay. Your Honor, I don't have any further questions for this witness.
Do you, Mr. Watts?
No, sir.
Very well. I trust he can now be released as a witness here, Mr. Sweeney.
Yes, Your Honor.
Very well. You may stay with the meeting, Mr. O'Brien, or leave it at your choice. If you do stay with the meeting, please mute yourself.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Next witness, Mr. Sweeney.
Your Honor, the state would call Mr. Wallace.
We can have him brought in. Mr. Wallace, if I could get your face on screen.
Yes,
You raise your right hand, I'll administer an oath. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in the matter now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. You may question the witness, Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, would you please state your name for the court, please?
Robert Wallace.
And Mr. Wallace, do you know why you're here today?
Yes.
Okay. And let me ask you, who were you employed by on December 5th of 2020?
El Dorado Correction Facility.
Okay. And Mr. Wallace, on this specific date, December 5th, 2020, do you remember if there was an incident out at the prison that you were involved in?
Yes.
Were you injured on that day?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell me specifically just basically what happened?
I responded to a call for an officer needs assistance due to some resident fighting.
Mhm.
When I arrived at the cell house, I noticed a group of residents going from one side to the other side,
Mhm.
and one of them caught my eye because I saw some blood and chemicals on his sweatshirt, so I stopped him. I put him against the wall, told him not to turn. Before I restrained him, I was trying to get the control operator to close the doors to stop the flow and to prevent more people getting involved. After like the third time that he kept on turning towards me, I put it on the floor. At that time, one of the residents that was on the opposite side, I saw him pull something from his waistband and came towards me, resulting on black eye and a cut on my left side of my face.
So he hit you with whatever he had in his hand. Is that what you're saying?
With his fist and with the weapon that he had.
Okay. And were you familiar with the resident that did that to you?
Yes,
Who was that?
Dimitri Woods.
Okay. And how long had you worked at the prison before this incident happened?
I started there in 2012.
Okay, so you had worked there for quite some time. Mr. Wallace, can you talk to me about any medical assistance that you received as a result of an injury related to this incident?
From the cell house, I went to the infirmary. They cleaned the cut and stuff like that, but then they sent me to Susan B. Allen to be checked out there. They did a CT scan for possible skull fractures. I was having some issue with my left eye. I saw a eye doctor. I was still having issue. They sent me to a neurology. Then after that, nothing else.
Okay. How deep, maybe last question. How deep was the cut up around your face and eye?
It wasn't too deep. It was
Okay.
pretty light cut.
Okay, but there was some issues maybe with your eye that they were looking at?
Yes,
Okay. And that's where you think you got hit with the weapon or the fist?
yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I don't have any further questions for this witness.
Mr. Watts, you have any questions for Mr. Wallace?
I don't believe so, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. Any reason why Mr. Wallace can't be released from the meeting, Mr. Sweeney?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Wallace, I'll go ahead and release you from the meeting. You can stay with it if you want to, but if you do, I'm going to ask you to mute yourself, okay?
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Can you call your next witness, Mr. Sweeney?
Your Honor, the state would call Sarah Owen.
Ms. Owen, if you'd raise your right hand, please, I will administer an oath to you at this time. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give and the matter now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
Yes.
You may question the witness, Mr. Sweeney.
Ma'am, would you please state your name for the court, please?
Sarah Louise Owen.
And Miss Owen, do you know why you're here today?
Yes.
Okay. You were subpoenaed, of course, right? Okay. Miss Owen, can you tell me where you were working on December 5th of 2020?
I was working for the Kansas Department of Corrections at El Dorado Correctional Facility.
Okay. And how long had you been there at that time?
I had been working since September 24th of 2018.
Okay. And I'm going to specifically direct you to that date, December 5th, 2020. Do you remember or recall an incident that you were involved in where you may have been injured?
Yes.
Can you tell me just kind of what happened?
So I was working in C cell house. There was an officer needs assistance, and I responded to it. I went into D2, and there was already spray and stuff on the floor, so I do remember it being slippery. I went and restrained another resident who had been sprayed in the face. So he had actually walked into the officer's like break room area. I got him calmed down, got him cuffed up. We were walking out, and then he or I was the target, but we were both thrown into a wall. Another officer took over his escort to get him out of the cell house after that point. And then I believe that is when Brandon Neely and I were attacked by Mr. Woods. And then after that, of trying to get him restrained, I noticed that Wallace was having issues in the Sally Port, so I went in there to get him, help him get another resident restrained. As I was getting that resident restrained, I was on the, I was like kneeled down, getting him restrained and trying to get him up because he was also disoriented. And as I was trying to get that resident up, Mr. Woods was being escorted out by CS1 Brown, and that is when he kicked me in my jaw and was escorted back out. And I think that's about all of my interaction with Mr. Woods. After that, I did keep going in, trying to get the cell house to comply, and also getting doing yard control, getting guys to get into the pens and stuff just to make sure there's no more movement until Lieutenant or Captain McGuire and CS1 Davis and others brought in the, I don't know, like the actual technical term, but the war wagon, and we ended up getting everybody finally locked down and safe and secure. And then that's when I was sent to the hospital to be evaluated.
Okay, and I want to come back to that in just a bit, but I specifically want to direct your attention to kind of your interaction with Mr. Woods. It sounds like there were 2 incidents involving Mr. Woods.
Yes.
Okay, the first one, I think you just stated you were attacked. What did you mean by that, and specifically what happened?
So after the first resident was handed off from me, I noticed both Sally Port doors were open, and he was specifically looking at Neely, I believe, and started running at Neely. And him and Neely ended up on the ground, and by the time I got over there, I gave multiple commands to please cuff up, cuff up, cuff up. I did give pressure points. I tried pulling him off of Neely. I kind of realized that there wasn't a whole lot that I could do with my strength versus Woods. So I saw Officer Brown coming in, and he is a lot more physically fit than me. So he took over, and I went over to help Wallace. As far as what happened because of the adrenaline and the stuff with the like being shoved or pushed into the wall, I don't remember a whole lot of what had happened with the interaction with Neely between that and then going into Wallace.
Let me just try to see if I can narrow this down a little bit better. Do you remember if there was a weapon involved?
Absolutely. I saw Brandon Neely. So as he saw Neely, as Mr. Woods saw Neely, he came at him with a stabbing device and stabbed him, or attempted to stab him, right in the forehead. I believe it was more than once, but for sure the one time it did bend. I remember it being in his hand multiple times. While we were scuffling around, I was trying to get it from him. Neely was trying to get it from him. I don't recall if I was the one that got it from him. I do know I had gotten another weapon, but I don't remember if it was the lock and sock or the stabbing device.
Miss Helen, let me ask you this: were you ever hit with the stabbing implement?
Yes.
Where?
I believe on my left side of my vest, and then up in here.
Like around your neck?
Yeah.
Okay. And
But
then
I don't know, I will be honest, I don't know if it was, because it was pretty bent at that point. I don't know if it was his fist or the actual device.
there. And then it sounds like there's a second incident while he's being transported away where you're kicked.
Yes. So I was helping a resident off of the floor. I got him restrained. And as I was trying to get him off the floor, Officer Brown was escorting Dimitri Woods out of the cell house. So we were in the Sally Port. He broke escort with Officer Brown, and that's when he kicked me in the jaw.
Direct hit or kind of a glancing blow?
Sorry.
A direct hit to your jaw or kind of a glancing blow? Do you remember?
Direct hit.
Okay. And it sounds like you went to the hospital as it relates to some of these injuries. Talk to me about that and any injuries sustained.
I do have, I believe it's a 4% permanent disability in my shoulder, or 9%, sorry, between my shoulder and my jaw. I don't know how else to describe that. I had a independent medical evaluation done.
Well, but let me ask you this: did they give you any specific medical diagnoses as it relates to this incident and injuries you received?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But what did they tell you was wrong with you, I guess?
I have a permanent impairment.
In your shoulder?
Yes.
Okay, so so ligament damage or muscle damage, or do you know?
No. I was not requested, advised for to have more tests done, but those didn't end up being done. So I ended up having a settlement and used that to go get care. And so now I just have kind of a maintaining care going on.
Okay. Last question. What are the lingering medical issues that you still have related to this attack?
I grind my teeth now. My jaw clicks a lot. My shoulder swells if I don't continue my exercises or my preventative care, or continue seeing doctors or chiropractors. I can't do a lot of catch or sports with my right arm anymore, else it starts to swell up.
Okay. Well, thank you, Miss Owen. I don't think I have any further questions
Okay.
for you. Thank you.
Okay, and if you need the IME, I do have a copy, so I can send that to you at another time.
Thank you, Miss Owen.
You're welcome.
Questions for this witness, Mr. Watts?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Owens, I guess my following question here relates to this last part. You are no longer with the Department of Corrections, correct?
No, I am with the Department of Corrections still. I just no longer am an officer. I work in reentry now.
Okay, what is re-injury?
Reentry, so I do programming to help guys when they get back out.
Okay, I misunderstood you. Re-entry, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
That's all right. How long did you serve as an officer inside the walls at prisoners at various prisons?
So from September 24th of 2018 to April of 2021.
Okay. So from September of 2018 to April of 2021, this incident takes place December of 2020, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes? Is that a yes response?
Oh, yes, sorry, yes.
Please answer yes or no.
Yes.
I'd be willing to bet this is not the only time you were involved in some sort of a physical altercation or incident with inmates.
Correct, just not to that severity.
Okay. I guess I'm trying to figure out, you conclude that your disability is directly related to this particular incident. Is that what your conclusion is?
That's what the doctor concluded.
Was that a evaluation that was done immediately after this incident or later on?
Later on.
But after this incident, you continued to serve as an officer until basically another 4 months till April, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Were you able to do your duties during that time?
I felt like I wasn't able to. I lost a lot of rapport that I had with a lot of my residents. I felt like I wasn't an effective leader anymore, especially in that cell house after everything happened. So I did make the ultimate decision to take a break and leave the Department of Corrections.
But during that 4 month period, you didn't have a physical disability that prevented you from doing your job, correct?
Correct.
Nothing else. Thank you.
Sweeney, can this witness be released at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
And Ms. Owen, you can stay with the meeting or leave it at your choice, but if you do stay with the meeting, please mute yourself.
Okay, I will.
Thank you. Mr. Sweeney, another witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Say we call Officer Neely.
Mr. Neely, if you'd please come on audio and join us with video as well.
Right.
There we are. All right, Brandon Neely.
Yes.
Okay, if you'd raise your right hand, the court will administer an oath at this time. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give and the matter now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
Yes.
All right. You may question the witness, Mr. Sweeney, and I will tell you, Mr. Neely, I want to make sure everyone on the meeting can hear. So please speak up when you answer, okay?
Okay.
All right. You may begin your questioning, Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Neely, well, would you please say your name for the court, please?
Brandon Neely.
Mr. Neely, do you know why you're here today?
I do.
Okay, Mr. Neely, are you still employed with the Kansas Department of Corrections?
I'm no longer employed with the Kansas Department of Corrections now.
Okay, let me ask you this. Were you employed with the Kansas Department of Corrections on December 5th of 2020?
Yes.
Okay, and at that time, were you working out at the El Dorado Correctional Facility?
Yes.
Okay, and you were working with inmates on the inside?
Yes.
Okay, specifically working back to that date, December 5th, do you remember an incident that happened on that date? And if so, can you talk to me briefly about what happened?
No.
Why is he cutting?
You're breaking up, Mr. Neely.
I apologize. I don't have the best reception. I'm sitting in the middle of nowhere right now at work. I apologize. If I need to repeat anything, please tell me.
I don't think I heard any of what you said previously. So if you could just start from the top.
So I was 5315, which is a radio number that is relation to main compound entry supervisor or main compound supervisor. I responded to an incident in D cell house side, I believe, 2, where there were 3 inmates involved in an altercation, 2 against 1, involving a weapon. When I got to the cell house, I gave commands and orders for them to stop fighting. In turn, they did not stop fighting. I deployed chemicals. When they started to disperse, one of the inmates, we walked into the strip out room, the yard strip out room, where we placed him in restraints and began to walk him out of the cell house. Uh, upon upon walking towards the Sally Port, Dimitri Woods came rushing through the Sally Port where I
Okay, I'm gonna stop
reference
you right
to.
there. You cut out again. Yeah, okay. Sounds like you're maybe back with us. Can you start with the part about Mr. Woods?
As we were walking towards the Sally Port of the D2 side, Dimitri or inmate Woods rushed through the Sally Port from the one side to the two side where I still had my MK9 in my hand. I then deployed chemicals in the direction of Dimitri Woods, where they did not seem to affect him. He stabbed me in my forehead. When he did, the weapon that he was wielding bent. It bent in a 90-degree angle. The weapon he was wielding, it was a 12-inch long by 3/4 inch wide piece of metal with one end sharpened. The other end had a makeshift handle made out of, I believe, bed sheets or clothing. When he stabbed me, he began to move past me, where I reached behind me, grabbed him, and pulled him to the ground with me. At that time, we wrestled for the weapon. I took the weapon from him. I I from him. I pushed it down into my vest so that it was secure, so that the inmate could not get it back. Where then we started to give him orders to restrain. He fought to be restrained. We did end up getting him restrained, where in turn we stood him up and began walking him towards the Sally Port door. As we got towards the Sally Port door, that's when he kicked Officer Owens in the face. At that point, he was placed against the wall. The escort was then switched out due to KDOC policy. The escort was switched out because the officer that is the original use of force is not allowed to escort the offender. I switched out with two other officers, and I don't remember who they were at this point in time. But as they got him out of the cell house, he got combative again, where he was then placed against the wall or against the front door of D cell house. And then placed against the front door of D cell house, the offender started to show signs that he would be compliant with orders, where he was then walked. Or no, he was not walked. He was complying with orders while being placed against the wall, where SST came down and took over escort of the inmate and escorted the inmate from D cell house to wherever he went from that point.
Okay. Officer Neely, let me ask you this. It sounds like you kind of chronicled or detailed in your testimony the main portions of the incident. Do you remember him having or seeing him having an interaction with Officer Johnson?
I'm not 100% for sure on that one.
Okay.
I do believe Officer Johnson was in the Sally Port when he came through the Sally Port.
But you saw him kick Miss Owen as well?
I did see him kick Miss Owen, yes.
Okay. It sounds like from your testimony that he stabbed you with this implement that you described in your head. Talk to me about any medical attention that you received and what any diagnoses for that attention was.
I received medical attention on site at El Dorado Correctional Facility. In front of the cell house, Miss Nurse Lampkin did look at my head and tell me that I had been stabbed. I did not know at the point in time that we got outside that I had been stabbed. Nurse Lampkin did look at me and tell me that I'd been stabbed and that I needed to go seek medical attention. I was then, after the incident had been completely finished, they had sent me off-site to Susan B. Allen Memorial Hospital in El Dorado, Kansas, where I don't exactly remember what all medical treatment I got there. I know that they ended up super gluing the stab wound closed. I don't have medical record to show it. I haven't been diagnosed with it, but I do believe that I have some mental issues that come from this incident.
Okay. Officer Neely, were you familiar with Mr. Woods before this incident?
I was.
Okay. Do you see him in the Zoom conference today?
I do.
Can you point that individual out?
Mr. Woods is the one in the screen that says Amy Huffman -LCF. He is a light-skinned African male.
Okay. I have no further questions for this witness.
Mr. Watts, do you?
No questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mr. Neely, I can release you from the meeting at this time. If you stay with it, and you're certainly entitled to, you just need to mute yourself, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Next witness, Mr. Sweeney.
Last witness, Your Honor, I believe is Officer Grabenich. I believe I saw him.
All right, sir, I'm going to administer an oath to you at this time. If you'd raise your right hand, please. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in the matter now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
I do, yes.
Very well. You may question Mr. Gromenick. Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you please state your name for the court, please, sir?
Ethan Grabinek.
Mr. Grabenich, do you know why you're here today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Grabenich, are you still employed by the Kansas Department of Corrections?
I am not.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Were you employed by the Kansas Department of Corrections on December 5th of 2020?
Yes, sir.
I'm assuming you were stationed out of the El Dorado Correctional Facility?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, I want to reference that December 5th, 2020 date. Do you remember being involved in an incident on that day? And if so, can you please describe for me what happened?
Yes, sir. So, I was working a cell house that night. I was on the response team. I can't remember exactly what time. I think it was like between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. We get a call for offenders fighting in D cell house, I believe. There were weapons involved. When I arrived, I see Wallace, I believe, attempting to restrain a inmate. And so once they pop the doors, I go in there to assist them in the sally port with that offender. And then there's a crowd of inmates on the D1 side that's kind of hovering by the open door right there. And I look to my left and I see Dimitri Woods pull out a homemade stabbing device out of his pocket. I believe it was his right pocket. And then that's when he charged us. He stabbed Wallace in the left eye. And then as soon as I grabbed hold of the Dimitri Woods, that's when he struck me in the neck with the weapon, and then he kneed me and I fell to the ground, and then Dimitri Woods ran to the D2 side, and then by the time I got back in there, they I believe it was Sweeney and one or two other officers were trying to wrestle the weapon away from him, and I go in there, assist them. We finally get the weapon away from him, finally get him into handcuffs. We get him up. I'm one of the ones escorting him out of the cell house, and as we're walking him out, he attempts to kick another officer. That's when I had to place him on the ground. And then once he's under control again, we pick him up and we move him out of the cell house, where I relinquish control of him to another officer.
Okay. Thank you, officer. Officer, when you initially responded, were you with COI Ashley Johnson?
It doesn't ring a bell. I didn't know many officers working out there, but I know there was a few female officers out there at the time.
Okay. Officer, did you receive medical attention for any injuries that you may have sustained during this incident?
I did not know.
Okay. You didn't see even the in-house folks for the injuries?
No, sir. I just had a little kink in my neck from where he struck me with a weapon. That was it. I didn't see any, need to seek medical attention for it.
Okay. Officer, I don't think I have any further questions for you. Thank you.
Mr. Watts,
All right.
any questions for this witness?
I don't believe so, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, very well. And it's my understanding, Mr. Sweeney, that that was the state's last witness to call this morning.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Does the defense intend to call witnesses at this hearing, Mr. Watts?
Not at this hearing, Your Honor. Thank you.
Court's prepared to rule on the various counts of the information at this time. Regarding count one involving Ethan Grabenik, the court does find that probable cause has been shown that the crime of battery against a law enforcement officer has been committed and that the defendant, Dimitri Woods, committed it. Defendant is bound over on battery against a law enforcement officer, a level 5 person felony in count one. Regarding count two involving Ashley Johnson, the court finds that there's been virtually no evidence at all presented to this court to support probable cause as to that count. Even the investigating officer provided no information to support battery against a law enforcement officer in regards to Ashley Johnson. Defendant is not bound over on count two. That charge is dismissed in its entirety. Regarding count three involving alleged victim Brandon Neely, the court does find that the state has shown evidence supporting probable cause that the crime of aggravated battery against a law enforcement officer, a level 4 person felony involving Brandon Neely, has been committed, and that the defendant, Dimitri Woods, committed it. Defendant is bound over on count three. Regarding count four involving Sarah Owen, the court finds in this case that the evidence did support that there was a kick to this individual. The evidence reflects that even Sarah Owen herself cannot provide testimony to this court that a deadly weapon was used upon her. The state's charging document refers to the fact that the aggravated battery against a law enforcement officer charge was based on the use of a stabbing implement. The evidence does not support that in regards to Sarah Owen. Furthermore, the court doesn't want to make light of the fact as to the possible damage that a kick to the neck area can do, or the other roughhousing that went on that day. Court, however, finds that the state has not shown that there's a causal relationship between the incident involving Dimitri Woods and the eventual disability that Sarah Owens sustained. It may have been a contributing factor. However, the evidence just simply does not rise to the level of probable cause. However, the court will bind over on the lesser included charge of battery against a law enforcement officer in regards to Sarah Owen, a level 5 person felony, and the court will bind over Dimitri Woods on the level 5 person felony in count 4. Regarding count 5, regarding Robert Wallace, the court is particularly concerned about the stabbing that took place near the eye area of Robert Wallace. That in itself, in the view of the court, supports the charge of aggravated battery against a law enforcement officer. The evidence presented by the state does show probable cause that that crime has been committed and that the defendant, Dimitri Woods, committed it. Woods is bound over for trial on count 5, aggravated battery against a law enforcement officer, a level 4 person felony. Do you need the court to summarize its rulings on these counts, Mr. Sweeney?
No, Your Honor, I think I have a good understanding of the court's ruling, and the state will prepare an appropriate preliminary hearing journal entry.
Very well, thank you. Court will proceed to arraignment at this time. Mr. Wast, does your client desire the charging document to be read to him?
Let me inquire of Mr. Woods. Do you have a copy of the charging document? A printed copy?
No.
You do not. Judge, given that he apparently does not have a printed copy, I would ask that perhaps we read this to him at this time.
Very well, Mr. Watts. Count 1 alleges on or about the 5th day of December 2020 in Butler County, Kansas, Dimitri Ray Woods did knowingly cause physical contact in a rude, insulting, or angry manner while in custody of the Secretary of Corrections to another person, to wit, Ethan Grebenik, a state correctional officer or employee, while such officer or employee is engaged in the performance of such officers or employee's duty in violation of KSA 21-5413C3A, A2, G3C, battery against a law enforcement officer, a level 5 person felony. Count 2 was dismissed by the court in preliminary hearing. Therefore, the court will omit the reading of that particular charge. Count 3 reads, on or about the 5th day of December 2020 in Butler County, Kansas, Dimitri Ray Woods did knowingly cause physical contact in a rude, insulting, or angry manner with a deadly weapon, or in any manner in which great bodily harm, disfigurement, or death can be inflicted, to wit, improvised stabbing implement to another person, to wit, Brandon Neely, a uniformed or properly identified state, county, or city law enforcement officer, while such officer was engaged in the performance of such officer's duty in violation of KSA 21-5413D2A, B1C, G4B, aggravated battery against a law enforcement officer, a level 4 person felony. Count 4, as eventually modified by ruling of this court, that reads in original form, on or about the 5th day of December 2020 in Butler County, Kansas, Dimitri Ray Woods did knowingly cause physical contact in a rude, insulting, or angry manner with a deadly weapon, or in any manner whereby great bodily harm, disfigurement, or death can be inflicted, to wit, improvised stabbing implement to another person, to wit, Sarah Owen, a uniformed or properly identified state, county, or city law enforcement officer, while such officer was engaged in the performance of such officer's duty in violation of KSA 21-5413D2A, B1C, G4B, aggravated battery against a law enforcement officer, a level 4 person felony. The court does wish to clarify for the record that following the court's ruling at preliminary hearing, the charge which currently stands and exists in this case is level 5 battery against a law enforcement officer. Again, a level 5 person felony, and the defendant is being arraigned on that charge. Count 5 reads as follows. On or about the 5th day of December 2020 in Butler County, Kansas, Dimitri Ray Woods did knowingly cause physical contact in a rude, insulting, or angry manner with a deadly weapon, or in any manner in which great bodily harm, disfigurement, or death can be inflicted, to wit, improvised stabbing implement to another person, to wit, Robert Wallace, a uniformed or properly identified state, county, or city law enforcement officer, while such officer was engaged in the performance of such officer's duty in violation of KSA 21-5413D2A, B1C, G4B, aggravated battery against a law enforcement officer, a level 4 person felony. How does the defendant plead, Mr. Watts?
Your Honor, my client would plead not guilty all charges at this time. Ask the case be set for appropriate pretrial and jury trial settings.
Court will establish same.
Can I get a copy of that?
Mr. Watts, can you send that to your client?
I could send him a copy of actually, I'll send him when Mr. Sweeney files the amended, I will send him the amended charging document.
Court will establish Tuesday, December 3 as the jury trial date in the case. Tuesday, December 3. Continuing day to day thereafter until complete. Starting at 9 o'clock on December 3rd, unless announced differently later. We will establish a pretrial conference by Zoom the week before. Fortunately, it is Thanksgiving week. $10 a.m. on Tuesday, November 26th. November 26th, 10 a.m. for pretrial conference. That will be by Zoom. The defendant must join that meeting.
Judge, we have 11 a.m. available. 10 is already taken.
Okay, I have 11 already occupied on my calendar.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's just avoid a possible problem. Let's move it to the afternoon. I trust DOC can accommodate a 3 o'clock setting.
Yes.
Okay. So 3 o'clock, Tuesday, November 26th for Woods. And Mr. Woods will be expected to be present on that Zoom meeting, the pretrial conference. 3 o'clock, Tuesday, November 26th is currently the next setting in the case.
Can I go over some things with my attorney?
I think we have enough time to give you a breakout session at the conclusion of this proceeding. Mr. Woods will try to accommodate that. This will be a private session between you and your lawyer by Zoom.
All right.
All right. So Mandy, I'm going to ask you to accommodate that when we formally recess. But I want to ask Mr. Sweeney first. Is there anything else that we need to cover today as part of the Woods proceeding?
Not that I'm aware of, Your Honor.
Mr. Watts, anything further at this time?
No, sir.
All right. So I'm going to ask at this time, upon recess, for the meeting to remain open so that we can have a private session between Mr. Woods and his lawyer. If there's nothing further, then the case is formally in recess. Everyone else may leave the meeting at this time.